Nicole Scott here from Mobile Geeks, and today I'm going to be doing a review of the Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge. It's beautiful, but is the Edge actually worth it? Let's dive into the review and find out. So taking the S7 Edge out of the box, we have the S7 Edge, a quick start guide, a fast charge adapter, a MicroUSB cable, a MicroUSB to full-size USB connector, and headphones. So now if we just take a quick walk around the system, we have the power button here on the right. Along the bottom we have the single speaker as well as a MicroUSB port. Now an interesting point about this is since the phone is waterproof, this actually has a moisture sensor in it, so if there is dampness inside, you will not be able to charge your phone. We have a headphone jack along here, two separated power buttons on the left, and then on the top, that's where you have your microSD card slot as well as your SIM card slot. On the back, we've got that 12 megapixel camera that has a reduced bump size. If you remember on the S6 Edge Plus, it was actually rather large and kind of protruding, and now it's got this kind of minimalistic kind of look to it. It still does stick out, but part of the reason why that happened is the thickness of the phone has actually increased to 7.7 millimeters, and that's because it got a way bigger battery, up to 3,600. The other stylistic change that I do like to see is that we have this kind of Note 5 curve around there. So this has a curve on the front and a curve on the back, and it just feels so good in your hand. If you remember the Edge apps from last generation, you maybe won't be that impressed, but Samsung has done a great job at the number of apps that are now available. We have some really amazing ones, and this is the Twitter highlights here. We have 2 rows of apps that you can launch, and you can also change those around and remove them. This I really like. Now I can set up apps to be in different locations, so out and around. So this will be like Maps, work maybe I have my email or Word, and home I probably have Netflix, right? So this is a really cool concept that Samsung actually stole from HTC. Here we have the same frequent people that I contact, because right now I'm doing the review and I want to know what all my buddies think about the phone. Here we have a news scroll, which I think is really quite useful. All around, you can head into the Samsung shop and find some really cool apps for the Edge. And since this is open to third-party developers, we're only going to see this get a lot more interesting. Okay. Samsung also has always on display. Head into display, always on, and then you can actually customize it with varying clock styles. Samsung claims the average person turns their phone on 150 times to look at the time. Always on display will use about 1% of power per hour, which should be less than you actually powering on your phone just to check the time. Now, if I didn't tell you this was running Android 6.0, you probably wouldn't know because it's running Samsung's own UI, TouchWiz. Now, it's actually a very nice UI now. If you know it from previous generations before the S6, you might think, oh, bloated and heavy, but there's a lot more googliness in this generation of TouchWiz than there has been in the past. There is a very nice notification section here, which is actually a little bit different than last generation. We now have an always-on display toggle, which is pretty good. There are a lot of additions in the back end where like things that used to be applications like say Smart Manager are now integrated into the UI. So here you can kind of manage everything that's going on with your phone. And of course, if you are familiar with Samsung, you'll know that they just really love to give you lots and lots of options, right? So swap to capture, right, direct call on. There's like lots of really great things, and there's even a lab section in here which I really feel like I should mention. Now I like that TouchWiz has an app drawer, but here in the options you can actually turn it off. One thing that has gotten a lot better is the fact that Samsung has kept their app drawer. They've changed the back end so you can actually have it alphabetical, or you can choose to create any order that you want. Initially, I wasn't a fan of the way that the app drawer was organized in previous generations, but the S6 and S7, I do like a lot what they've done with TouchWiz. And it feels a lot more similar to a native Google experience than TouchWiz of the S5 or S4. The S7 has gone from 16 megapixels down to 12, but the overall software processing on the camera I think has increased greatly. So now we have to talk autofocus because everyone's kind of freaking out about how fast it is, right? And damn, it is fast. Look at that. Cactus, my hand. Cactus, my hand. But let's just explain. All right, now let's talk autofocus. We have a 60 megapixel. All right, now let's just talk about the camera and this autofocus, because this is one of the craziest things to ever appear on a smartphone. See that, like just how quickly it goes to my hand. Absolutely crazy. So now some things to note about it are, sometimes I'm like, why isn't this in focus, right? My finger's here, now it's just blurry. Dead weight, no. A little further out, yeah, now it's in focus. Right, so it actually depends on how much of the display is being covered by the object that's closer to you, and if it's dead center, right? So I can have my hand here on the side, nothing's happening, gets to the middle, there we go, right? Then it's really fast. But it doesn't matter that it's off to the side. So the autofocus, even though it's supposed to be every pixel is helping to focus, it's only until the object gets to center where the software decides that you're going to go on focus on the object in the foreground, right? See, it moves away from center, right? So even though every pixel is meant to focus, the weighting of the object in the foreground at the center of the display is where it's going to kind of choose to focus. But I mean, it's amazing. Look at the detail we're getting on my fingers and that bokeh effect. Oh, I need to drink some water. Taking a closer look at some of the photos, I'm just flat out impressed. These outdoor shots have really great color accuracy. I really just like what I see here in general. When we go into lower light situations, the photos look great. There is definitely an over sharpening when you kind of zoom in. So this is one of the criticisms that I have in general of the camera. The low light photos look great, but when you do zoom in, they definitely have kind of a little bit of over sharpening, even though maybe they shouldn't let you zoom in that close. But if we kind of go through it, here's a slight optical zoom, so you can see that there is a heavy amount of sharpening. Now, one of the reasons I might be a little sensitive to this these days is I just finished the Asus Zenfone review, so I'm kind of looking for what things look like when you zoom in. Now, one of the other things that I have noticed is that oversaturated photos look great. I mean, they do. This is one of the go-to moves of most smartphone manufacturers. But in this photo here, I do feel like the green is a little bit too green. It's a kind of a vibrant, fake colored green. I mean, but having said that, like, look how great the photo detail is on this. Yeah, you can almost feel like you can pet the hairs on that plant. If we keep on going through the depth of field on this for something that has, a dark foreground and then heavy backlighting, we have a good amount of detail on this leaf. So just in general, the patterns on that look amazing. So we definitely see how much you can zoom in on this and how the bokeh looks really, really good. Now we've seen exactly how fast the autofocus is, and so this definitely has a lot to do with that. When you zoom in on that, just exceptional. So here's another low light situation where you can zoom in on the stained glass and still have some detail. Now, taking photos of cats is actually quite difficult because they're fast moving, and Samuel is a very fast moving cat. Now I've got a video here, and all of these photos that you're seeing are actually taken while the screen is recording. So I just kind of wanted to give you a sense of, right, see, that was the video, and now this is the close-up of his face as he was moving that quickly. So you still get the kind of hairs. And so this is a difficult lighting situation because we have the lights over here from the window outside, and then inside you can see that this is relatively dark. You zoom in on that, there is a bit of noise. But it's a very, very great amount of detail on the hair there for a cat that's moving around. Slow-mo is another feature that I really like. We've got 240 frames a second here. So here's me taking a slow-mo of some milk. There we go, now it's slowed down. A little bit of coffee pouring for you there. Just really great. The slow-mo on the S7 Edge is fantastic. You can see how fast that was actually going. Now this selfie. Samsung takes a great selfie. I took a couple. I wanted to have some different style of lighting. I do believe that there is a little bit of beautification on. See, so I still have some wrinkles on my forehead there, but there is a general smoothening. Germany is really a dry country, isn't it? So taking a look at this hanging moss, we have a great amount of detail in here. And as it bokehs out, you have a really good depth of field. All right, so taking photos at night in auto, the sign and the shadowing just doesn't seem quite as good as when you have it into pro mode, right? The blacks turn out to be really black and we have some really nice shadows where this looks more true to life. Whereas this kind of, the sign's overexposed and it just in general doesn't look quite as good. And the sign here, you can actually see all the letters. So this is actually something that in general, most smartphones take a better pro mode shot, but the f1.7 on this just takes an exceptional nighttime shot. The pro mode allows you to go down to an ISO of 50 or 80 and a shutter speed of 10 seconds. So this was, I think it was about an ISO 200 and then a shutter speed 2 seconds. I'm hand holding this. Keep in mind, this is not tripoded, so that's why we have a bit of shake on the background. But having said that, right, for something that is handheld, getting these kind of light traces with, so the nighttime shots are definitely another area where the camera definitely, So the nighttime shots are where the camera definitely stands out. Stained glass with the backlight has very good accuracy. These are all pro modes. This is a little bit dark, right? So I was playing around with it, and now that's overexposed, right? So you do have to spend some time in pro mode to get the right shot. But having said that, you can take a beautiful picture like that. Really nice. Here's an example of a selfie at night. I think we all look pretty handsome, but it is kind of noisy and distorted. Selfie in a bar. Say I'm looking quite awake. Got a bit of creeping going on there. And I was trying to get a candid shot here. It took quite a few, right? I do feel that this hue is a little bit green. For my liking, right? And someone that's moving. We do get some individual hairs on his beard, but in general, I think this is okay. Now, I took this panorama in the club, right? So you can see here, right, that I can zoom around and kind of get. Okay, so taking a look at battery life, we've got 28% left. And now we can see that I've been using this for 1 day, 2 hours and 6 minutes. So this is when I was sleeping. Here's some pretty heavy usage where I was actually watching a bunch of different stuff. So we have 51% used for screen, but that's 6 hours and 4 minutes screen on time. That's massive, right? So maybe I got 1 day of use, but a lot of standby time here as well. So we see that we have the Android OS, SoundCloud, because I've been playing music here. Media server is 2 episodes of Grey's Anatomy, so that's quite cool. So 2 1-hour series. Got to see that. YouTube, I actually watched 1 hour of cat videos. So that I think I watched 2 hours of cat videos on this phone on that. So there's a lot going on. Device idle. Camera, we have 7 minutes of use there. Overall, we're seeing like really great battery use here. You definitely get through the day if you are an aggressive user. So there was a lot of talk about Samsung not making the SD card available for internal storage, and that still is the case. But Samsung did issue a statement saying that the card would be formatted, and clearly it hasn't been. So the reason why Samsung has chosen not to do this is because mounting the SD card as internal storage is actually aimed at emerging markets. So smartphones that only have 48 gigabytes of internal storage, this is where you'd want the SD card to act as internal storage. When you have larger available internal storage like the 32 that's available here or the 64 that's available later, the SD card as internal storage isn't as much of an issue. Taking a look at the MicroUSB to full-size USB connector, you can just plug it in and use it to transfer files or music or whatever you want onto your phone. So I have to admit, over the past week, I didn't think that I was going to be that excited about the S7 Edge. And it turns out that if I had to choose between the S7 and this bad boy, I would actually pick the Edge. The design is just so much more beautiful. The way that the display curves over and kind of gives it that infinity look is just way more stunning. And the truth is that the camera is exceptional. The autofocus is really fast. It takes a beautiful point and shoot, and at night in pro mode you get some really great shadows and amazing color depth. The only thing that I can complain about is that because I was using the S7 and the S7 Edge at the same time, sometimes I felt like the S7 Edge camera wasn't as reliable or as consistent. But having said that, they have the exact same smartphone hardware, so there really is no reason for them to produce any different kind of quality of photo. So if there are any issues with the Edge, to me they're very minor, and they'll probably be fixed in a software update in the future. So if you're thinking about doing the upgrade from the S6 Edge Plus, you're going to be getting a much more manageable phone, doesn't have the sharp edges, it feels really, really good in hand, and you're going to be getting an SD card, and it's waterproof, and the battery life is definitely all day. So big fan of the Edge. Overall, just actually useful apps this time around. So let me know what you think in the comments. I'm your host, Nicole Scott for Mobile Geeks.